Well, thank you for all joining. It's kind of neat. You're going to get to know a lot about my life tonight because actually I'm going to have the doctor that delivered me come up and give a talk. I just met the doctor that delivered me, which is amazing. Are you here, Dr. Usman? Did he leave already? He's like, oh, I'm not admitting to that. Yeah. Anyway, pretty nice surprise. So I just want to thank you all for coming and making time. I'll try to be as quick as I can tonight. We're releasing 6 new images, so yeah, it'll be quite an eventful night. I want to give a hand to my staff. You probably saw Sharon. She was behind the counter there, so Sharon's been with us quite a while now. So Sharon was there. Lindsay was helping with the drinks, so she's new, and yeah, Lindsay's here. We have Claire as well, who just started with us. And Deb, and then my partner and Alberta Gallery Managers, Nicola. So that's the team there. So let's give them a hand. They make this all happen. Yeah. And tonight I thought the theme would be nice to talk about connections, and basically connections with all of you, connections with nature, etc. So that'll be kind of the theme along. And for those of you that don't know, we celebrated 20 years this year. Yeah, this gallery is 19 years that we've been here. Yeah, I started when I was 12, so yeah. Anyway, some of you have been supporting me for those full 20 years, and I just want to say thank you. My roots are obviously up in northern Saskatchewan, Waskesiu, so we released a book to commemorate that, but also my roots are here as well now, and the Bantle Canmore area. So 2 kind of books that celebrate the beautiful and vast nature of northern Saskatchewan and the 3 sisters in Canmore area. Dr. Usman, there he is, right there, so at the back. Yeah, you can all have a chat with him later about my deliveries. He said it was memorable, yes. Okay, I am not the one-shot wonder, but this is what really made All in the Wild. A lot of you, perhaps, but a lot of people collected this work first. And it's because we can all relate to this situation, having a bad feather day, right? And the grass will always get greener if you give it some time, and it's not always going to be a bad feather day. So it hangs in a lot of bathrooms and offices. And there's been some bad times over time, but through the community of all of you, over the 20 years, we've all been in this together. So I'm going to do another toast here and thank all of you. So thank you for being in it with us. Okay, appreciate it, everyone. So thank you. Yeah. And Canmore has been a really important part of my journey. And of course, the beautiful 3 sisters. Synonymous with Canmore, stand there to guide us all the time. This was a beautiful morning in fall as the light came. Yeah, just a little bit of a time lapse. Last May was beautiful Northern Lights. Yeah, Sister Symphony. There were some friends, collectors that were just sharing with me. They were here on the Thursday of the Thanksgiving, and their parents were here, and they said the Northern Lights were amazing at that point as well. Over the next 1 or 2 years, everyone, if you don't have the Aurora app on your phone already, put it on. It's a little purple box. Put it on, because we're at a solar maximum. So the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to have some really good Aurora shows, even here in the Canmore area, and even further south. All right. The 3 Sisters, Winter's Whisper. Yeah, beautiful little waterfall with the 3 sisters. You got to know these spots. And then a spot that's now on Google's map, known as the Sisters Outlook, or Viewpoint, excuse me. Anybody know how the sisters got their names? Oh, I forget. Come on, you guys. No, just kidding. Anyway, so, yeah, it's about the nuns, you're right. But there was an explorer. He woke up in the morning, came out of his tent, and this was back in the late 1800s, and there was a light dusting of snow on those mountain peaks. And he goes, oh, it looks like nuns, 3 nuns. And so they got to name the 3 nuns. But then another individual came along, I think about 10 or 15 years later. He was a surveyor, and he said, well, that's not really fitting. We're going to call them the 3 sisters. So they got named the 3 sisters, yeah. Individually, the large sister is known as Faith, the middle sister is Charity, and the little sister is Hope. So I have 3 sisters. That kind of makes sense. Yeah.
The large one, is that the left one?
The large one is on the right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the tallest one is the boat.
Yes, that's right. They go by the height. I always did too. I looked it up last night just to confirm, just to make sure. 'Cause I'm pretty sure they go by height. So yeah, because the sister on the far left looks like the largest one. Yeah, exactly. So, but it's by the peak height. So yeah. Now, in terms of the First Nations groups that lived here, they also had a name. Once it was called the Three Sisters, and they also, in their language, called it the Three Sisters. But their reason for calling it the Three Sisters was a little bit different. That Coyote is always a trickster. And Coyote, when he got in trouble, he would give away his three sisters all the time. So that's why they call it the Three Sisters. Reminder that the Coyote gave away his sisters. So anyway, this is the Guiding Sisters, and just to let you know, if you've collected it, congratulations. We're down to the last 5 editions of that piece. So with that being said, I think we need new sisters. This was this summer. Yeah. The gift of faith, charity, and hope. And the beautiful Alberta rose. So, beautiful moments. I was there for about 14 days where the roses were kind of blooming. I'd never seen that before. The water levels in Policeman Creek and such were up. So it was just a nice setting and a unique time. That little pond has been through so many iterations over the years. You guys might remember, if you've been with me a long time, when the floods happened, for a period of time, that little pond was not there because it all got blocked up and kind of sent out with the flooding. Guess who came along? Little beavers. Little beavers. And they made their pond back. So the beavers are having a good time again. So, anyway. Anybody have any questions about the sisters? I can try to answer. How many people have been up to one of them? The top of one? Well, that's what we're doing next. No, just
Bus is ready.
Sorry?
The bus is
The buses, yeah. No roadway up there yet, thankfully. So anyway, and yes, by all means, if there's any questions along the way, just fire them out, okay? We're going to move a little bit further north now, up to Canada's Arctic, okay? And this is Judge. This is a big 1,200-pound male bear. Incredible encounter with him. And some of you may have collected this piece already. The Arctic is a really special place to me. I did my master's degree in science on Arctic fox up there. And it's a landscape that's just so vast, so spectacular. This is us this spring traveling along the Arctic Ocean ice edge. Hard to believe, 90% of Canada's landmass is in Canada's north. Only 10% is this sliver down here where we all reside. Vastness, ice, snow, cold, very unique species that are well adapted to that climate. They wouldn't really survive that well in other climates. For instance, polar bears, this would be way too hot for them. Well, not way too hot for them today, but our summers are way too hot for them. This is little ants. I didn't know this is my macro lens. I was just on the snow. There's a snow ant up there that exists. Anyway, beautiful caribou walking across the landscape, drone video. So, yeah. Caribou are, again, a species that needs that cold temperature. You might be surprised to know that actually they're starting to see in the southern areas of the Arctic, they're starting to see moose. Moose are a boreal forest species, but as we get these warming climates, they're starting to expand further and further north. The caribou are actually struggling a little bit because through that kind of little bit warmer temperature, what's happening in the north is we're getting a little bit more precipitation, a little bit more snow. We're also getting a thick crust on the upper layer of the snow, which is not allowing those caribou to dig down for that vegetation that they typically like to feed on. And I had an eye-opening experience this spring.
Just went through the ice.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard some people laugh. It wasn't that funny. Anyway, I don't think Nick was letting me go back to the Arctic. That's the really sad part of this. But anywho, where would I be without this guy? And that's about connections. I'm connected to this fellow like he's my Inuit father. And he saved my life yet again. We were 500 meters from a camp that we've been going to for over 10 years. And 500 meters out from that camp, I noticed, the track in front of me that he was driving in was getting a little bit kind of soppy. And that can happen. You can have cracks in the ice. That's natural. And it might just be that there's a little bit of water that came up and everything's fine. But it did not look good. So I raced up towards David and I parked. And he kind of looked at me as he always does when I race up beside him. and I only made a step off the sled and I was in. And his grandson came running over, and I said, no, stay back, because it was all going to be weak. And I luckily caught my elbows on the ice. So I was only in up to about my hips. And I just sealed my way out, and I worked like a seal as I got out. No, I didn't. But anyway, and got out, and thankfully we had all of our gear with us. Thankfully they had parked beside some really rough ice, and we were on this little island no bigger than where the seats are in here, and they went with their harpoon points, and we knew that right here was safe. We knew that this spot was safe. Rough ice is typically, you can think of it like concrete, right? When there's rocks and stones in there, it all kind of forms together and holds together really tight, and it's really strong. So we were safe. But anywhere in that area just outside of there, their harpoon points would just go through. We were just on snow. We were only on snow. There was no ice below. And like I said, we've been to this place many, many times, and it's never been unsafe. David was in awe and quite shocked. And then came the period of time where David had to make the decision as to how we were going to get out. And he picked a line, and he said, we'll just go that way. I'm going to go first. If I get there, then you guys, I wave, and you guys come. If I go through, you don't come and get me. I'll get myself out. Very brave man. Anyway, so then we did the Indy 500 across the ice there. Cometex bouncing and everything, and water coming up behind our sleds. But we got out safe, and I got dry in a little Eskimo warm-up shelter, pop-up, and everybody was fine. We got to an inland camp, and David did a lot of pondering and shared a lot of stories, actually. Yeah, it was neat to talk about the ice and how things have changed. I don't know if you all know this, but the Arctic is warming up 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. So it's just one of those environments that's going to be a lot more impacted and a lot quicker. Polar bears are expected, and especially in certain areas by 2050, to be in reproductive failure, which means that they won't be able to reproduce their young anymore in a sustainable manner. So their populations will slowly decline. And the predictions are that even by 2100 we could see polar bears extinct. But they're not the only species. There's also, yeah, this was incredible, this mother ring seal with her little pup. This was a gift. David said, I've never seen that before. And I'm like, yeah, I've never seen that either. And when we first approached her, she actually was charging us. And usually they're quite scared, and I'm like, oh wow. And David said, well, let's just take our time. And we slowly, and eventually she just sat there and let us enjoy her and her little pup. It was amazing. Yeah. But again, another species that if they don't have that platform of ice, they don't have a place to birth their young. So there's a lot of things that are important here and integral in that Arctic Ocean ice that make the Arctic and make the species be able to survive. And the same with these polar bears. You can see the mother there walking. She's got one little cub beside her. And people see these really stark images of polar bears starving. Be a little bit careful about that. That might just be trying to raise up people's blood pressure. What's really happening is actually polar bears are just having less cubs. As I said, they're going to go into that reproductive failure by 2050. So they just won't be able to reproduce enough of their own to sustain their population. A mother bear, if you look at the whole course of her normal life, where polar bears have normal lives, by the end of her life, she will have only produced maybe 2 or 3 other females that are going to get to breeding age. They only 1/3 of cubs live to age 3. They lose a lot of their cubs in the first 3 years. And then you got to remember, these little cubs, they're not the smartest, right? So once they go out on their own, well, they might experience a big polar bear or something might happen. So survival is really complicated for bears. Females, they're only reproductive every 3rd year because they stay with their cubs for 2 years. So in her course of her lifetime, she might only have 4 or 5 litters. Well, that's not a lot of cubs if 50% of them are male and 50% are female. And yes, guys, we don't matter. Sorry.
Stupid question, but
never.
Well, you haven't heard it yet, but
that's awesome.
but
oh yeah, this one is not going to be good.
no, it's not. Everybody knows you. No, you say it's anticipated that they'll lose their reproductive rights, but how? Is it because of food source or
yeah, that's right.
What's
so
the real,
so they've been kind of evolved over 100,000 years to basically fit where they can go through a starvation period, no food period in the summer. I believe the number of days, don't quote me on this, is around 110. So they can do 110 days where they can basically not have food. You might say, well, why don't they go chase down a goose or something like that? I think the number is energetically, physiologically, if they chase a goose down and it takes 11 seconds or more, they've used more energy than the goose is going to provide to them for food. They need that rich blubber. So once we get past 110 days, that mother bear now is going to go, okay, well, I only had this much weight to produce 2 cubs. Now I'm past 110 days, I got to use that energy. They go through something called delayed implantation. So females are impregnated in May, but their body makes a decision in kind of September, October, as to whether they're going to go through the pregnancy. And they can actually decide how many they're going to go through with. So she might have 3 fertilized eggs in her uterus. She might say, I can only develop 1. And then she'll go through with the pregnancy. So reproductive failure is when her body can't go through the pregnancy phase at all.
Right.
Answer your question?
I think so, thank you.
Yeah. Now, the question becomes, Stu, I mean, can we see these polar bears adapt? Bears are very adaptable. We see that here in the valley with grizzly bears, with black bears. So will we see bears where they start maybe figuring out how to hunt whales effectively? They can't outswim a whale, but maybe they'll find a technique. There could be pockets of polar bears that pick up different techniques of hunting, but they are always going to rely on that marine. Are we going to see reversed evolution? Potentially. Yeah, grizzly bears are going to start moving up there, right? Grizzly bears are going to be up there. They're going to be feeding on the Arctic char runs, things like that. So growlers and pisleys, as they nickname them, are going to be more and more common. And honestly, they actually shouldn't be 2 different species. From a biology standpoint, a grizzly bear and a polar bear can mate together and they can produce a viable offspring. If you take that in biological terms, they're not actually different species. And that's because they've only evolved just 100,000 years apart. So, any other questions? I could talk about polar bears all day, so we'll get started. Everybody's going, oh my god, no more polar bear questions, please.
Curious.
Yeah.
Viable offspring, is that offspring able to reproduce?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean by viable. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, so you could produce, offspring, but then they're not able to, but no, they're viable offspring. They can reproduce as well. Yeah, some of those conditions up there. That's what the Arctic is supposed to be. And we spent a lot of days where we didn't even really have to wear gloves and such, and that was kind of mid to late April, in an area where the typical temperature would be hovering around that -20, and it was typically hovering around -5 to -8. Yeah, quite a bit warmer. So David has suggested we go in March this year, and I'm like, oh man, that's going to be super cold, but I don't think it will be actually. Yeah. Now there's one species that's been as dear to my heart as polar bears. Yeah. So when you're at camp, they know you're around. Their sense of smell is incredible. They follow polar bears around on the ice and such, but they have an incredible nose. They are the best adapted species in the Arctic. So yes, polar bears are very well adapted, but the Arctic fox is the best adapted species. So in terms of cold, they have very short little stubby legs, right? They have something known as countercurrent blood flow. So their vein and their artery are right beside each other. As the blood's going down to the paw, it's cooled. As it's coming back up, it's heated. So they lose minimal amounts of heat through their blood flow, okay? Their ears are very short. Their body is very small, volume-wise. And they have a double layer of fur. So very well adapted. But red fox are starting to be seen in this area. And red fox will kill Arctic fox because they'll outcompete them. Red fox are taller. Their ears are a lot longer. Their legs are a lot longer. They're not as well adapted at being in this cold climate, but because it's warming up, they can start to survive. So, now what can we do? Well, as a group and a community, when it comes to climate change and such, all we can do is put our best foot forward, right? So, these guys need us. Oh, they're just cute little guys. Yeah. And curious as can be. Maybe tomorrow I'll want to settle down. I want to share with you best foot forward, best pop. Incredible little species. About half the size of the red fox. They look like a big house cat. You would think they were part of the cat family, but they're not. Yeah, they're Arctic fox. So, any questions about Arctic fox? I did a master's degree on them for 3 years, so I could tell you a lot.
One question.
Yeah, go for it.
Are there any other animals that hunt in a similar way with like the magnetic field of the earth? You know, when the
I don't know if the cats do, but yeah, the foxes definitely, yeah, when they're pouncing through that snow and such, supposedly that's with the magnetic fields, and yeah, you just sit there and watch them. Good question, or good point, yeah. Have people seen that on some documentaries?
No.
Yeah, foxes, when they're hunting underneath the snow, they actually use, I don't exactly understand it all, I'd have to read it all, but you could Google it. But yeah, they're using the magnetic poles, and they're using their hearing to be able to tell where that little, yeah, underneath the snow is. And then boom, up they go and head first in. So, also you might want to know that their eyes are not like a typical canid eye. Their eyes are like a typical cat eye. So the pupils are long and elongated, which again helps them to kind of sense. And when they're doing that dive, helps them to pinpoint exactly where that food is. It's a little bit different than canids. That's a whole PhD study though. Any other comments?
How big are their litters, Jason?
Oh, so they're actually known as an R strategist. So R strategist is I reproduce a bunch, and I hope that some of them survive. Because they cycle with lemmings. So the most ever documented was 22 puppies. Yeah, I've never seen that. The most I ever saw at a den was 9. But yeah, in the literature it was 22. Yeah, could you imagine? And then there's K strategists, and K strategists are ones that dedicate, like a polar bear, dedicate a lot of energy to a couple and put a lot of energy into them to try to make them survive. Arctic fox average lifespan is only 8 months, because most Arctic fox in their first few months they don't make it, unfortunately, right? And then in years when lemmings are really good, or when polar bears are doing really good on the ice, then lots of Arctic fox survive. So every 3 to 5 years you get these cycles of Arctic fox. Yeah. You're good?
You answered the question.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Jason, why is their lifespan only 8 months?
Because if you put the average, Kevin, so yeah, like a lot of them will only make it 2 to 3 months, right? And some of them, if they make it into that first year of life, then they'll live to 5 or 7 or 8. But a lot of them don't make it past 2 or 3 months. Once they're on their own, so the toughest time for fox kits, and actually for fox adults, to be honest with you, fox adults have put so much energy into raising their young, and young are at such a point of, well, now I got to go figure this out on my own. The riskiest time is when they leave the den, which is typically in September. That's when fox mortality actually climbs, and then it kind of levels out again. So, yeah. So we can put our best foot forward by doing what we're doing at All in the Wild, and you guys are a big part of this. So this is some of the wildlife lands that we've conserved. And yes, they're in Saskatchewan, more bang for your buck. But it's about trees. It's really about trees. And yeah, just some beautiful drone images over that land. This is a block at Meath Park. So if you're familiar with Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, just a little bit north of there, north and east. Tons of critters that live there, tons of trees. We've saved millions of trees. When you look up what's the best technology for carbon capture on the planet, anybody know what it is? The best technology. Trees. That's right, trees. Trees are the best, okay? Yeah, we have all that carbon locked up, and we'll have to figure out what to do with those trees, but right now, trees are your best option for carbon, the best way to do it. And in spring, we announced on Earth Day a new acquisition at Meath Park that you just saw of 160 acres. So we're at 1,760 acres of land conserved. Woohoo! Congrats! 6% of all your art goes to this land fund, okay? Just so that you know. Okay, let's do our first draw. I hope my name's in there. It's for a gift certificate for $50. Should we pick somebody from the crowd together? Yeah. Oh wow, it's right shut so we can't get in there. Are you going to do that with you? Grab one for it? And you can grab your own name. It's okay.
Bruce Buckingham.
Bruce, congratulations. Is Bruce here?
Yes, he is.
Perfect, okay. We'll see you after, okay? Yeah. They'll help you out at the front there. So congrats, Bruce, all right? Woohoo! Awesome. Okay, and we all have connection to, of course, the beautiful bears of this valley as well. And we all had a very special connection with this individual. feeding up against the roadways. And we all know it's Nakota. Nakota in the First Nations language means our friend and ally. Special bear. Tough, I'm sure, for everyone to have lost her last June and lost her first little set of cubs. Her legacy will live on, though. I have a good friend that I did grad school with. He was coming into grad school as I was leaving. I actually taught him biology classes. Anyway, he does work for parks, and we've had a couple different conversations, and I do believe that the legacy of Nakota will live on through some of the changes that will be happening. Change takes time, and this is a really unfortunate situation that occurred with this bear, given the special genetics and such. A little bit of history that maybe some of you don't know is that there was a park warden who saw this little cub in its first year in the backcountry of Yoho. And he's an older fellow, he's actually retired now. And I was told that the entire park staff said, "You're going crazy. There's no little white cub out there." And he swore there was a white cub and he saw it. And he only saw it once. Anyway, what ended up happening was there was a train spill just outside of the field. And at that point in time, there was 20 or so bears feeding on that grain spill. And that's when that mother bear brought Nakota and Peaches to that place, and that's when the habituation happened. And that's when we started to get Nakota and Peaches up against the roadway. And these bears will choose this a little bit too. You have to understand there's a lot of biology going on out there, and that is that male bears are pretty mean guys, and they will pick on these younger bears. And when Nakota went through this situation of what happened, she was a little bit out of her mind. They thought that she was quite emaciated. She had been in the backcountry. They had a radio collar on her. I need you to know that Parks Canada did a ton to save this bear, and they were just devastated. She literally found a 2-foot section of fence that was not electrified, and she got through it. Heartbreaking. Anyway, I just want to do a toast to the memory of Nakota. You guys should know she's in a very peaceful place. No one will ever find her, but she's at her home where she hung out. And that's pretty special that she went home and found peace there. So to Nakota. We all need a little snuggle after that. Yeah. Anyway. You fall in love with these animals as a nature photographer. They're part of the family, and Nakota was part of my family, as Nicola can attest to. Within the ecosystem, just like these guys, this is entitled Snuggle Sandwich, but it really should have been just called Peanut Butter and Jelly. Anyway, with anything you need cohesion and connection with all kinds of different parts to have a healthy ecosystem. And we need bears in the valley here to have a healthy ecosystem. And there's a lot being done by Parks Canada. There's a lot being done by, there's a lot being done by the communities here, and there's a lot of awareness going on to start to change the way that we act in these communities as they expand and such. So this is photographed right in Banff, right in the town site. And every little bear is important. This is a little cinnamon colored black bear. And Parks Canada has gone ahead and put in place a program where if you have a food attractant, crabapple tree, berry tree, they'll replace it for you. And so we're getting ahead of some of these things because this little guy, right, this is a dangerous situation for him. This is right in somebody's backyard. Super cute. But a habituated bear is a dead bear. But I did have to release Berry Bear. Just an incredible, cute little moment. And I will tell you that our team here at All in the Wild, we will be educating through this image, telling people about attractants for bears, and in case they have any attractants and they're living in bear country, okay, what they need to do. Listen, 2023, this big boy, we all know who this guy is, right? Well, we wouldn't want his demise to be because we weren't responsible. And he had to get hazed out of Banff several different times, and finally he picked up the message because he was feeding on similar berries in Banff town site. So thankfully the boss, we don't need that to happen. Okay?
Hey, son,
Yep.
what kind of lens would you use and how close would you be?
Wide angle lens, and I had somebody beside me and I just outran them. It was perfect. 800 millimeter or more, so 800 millimeter or with an 800 and a 1.4 converter, which puts you up to 960. So safety in numbers, okay, grizzly bears have never attacked groups of 3 or more humans, okay, that doesn't mean you should go approaching them. Some of this stuff that we see with people with cell phones, come on, like, be respectful. Number 2 is safety of a vehicle is always a good thing, right? I was very near my vehicle when I captured that image right there, okay? Number 3 is no mums and cubs, right? Like you gotta be super careful with those guys. You don't wanna have a situation that can be, and some of these bears, to be honest with you, they're getting pretty used to humans, and if I was to suggest something, the Yellowstone model, they do allow people to really view the bears, and they kind of make it a bit more of a situation where it is allowed. And that might perhaps help the situation in terms of teaching other bears. I don't know. This is all research that has to come out and get figured out over time. But managing bears is complicated because they are opportunistic. So, hey, if I can get a free meal, I'm going to do that. So, yeah. Luckily, I've had no close calls with grizzlies, ever. I've had several close calls with polar bears. They can be a very dangerous species. So, have people had close calls here with grizzlies? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're a dangerous animal. They really are. You have to be very respectful. So.
You know, there was a couple of black bears here in Canmore, just down the street, eh?
As well?
Yeah.
Right now, at this time of year?
Yeah, well, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 6 weeks ago or so. They were climbing up the tree by the tin roof.
Mm. Perhaps berry tree as well, or no?
I don't know, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Well, we're living in their land, right? And the more that we keep going wider and wider, the less space they have. So, yeah. Let's switch to the West Coast, the beautiful West Coast. Amazing landscape, and got to spend some time there in June, enjoying the plethora of wildlife out there and the healthy ecosystem. You just breathe it in and you just feel health out there. How many people have Safe in Mom's Arms? Oh yeah, good. Safe in Mom's Arms is sold out. It's no longer available, just in the 5x7 open edition. So, yeah. So guess what? I guess we're gonna have a new otter, right? Yeah. Some amazing life out there, and what you should know is that sea otters are a success story. So with all of this, I always want to say there's hope. There's hope everywhere, right? It's all decisions that we get to make, and sea otters were actually a species that was nearly extinct by the late 1800s because their fur was so sought after by the Europeans. And then what ends up happening is the kelp forests start to grow like crazy because sea urchins, there's no kelp forest there, because sea urchins love to feed on kelp forests. And then there isn't the necessary habitat there for other species. So it turns out that sea otters are a keystone species, and without sea otters, you don't have a healthy ecosystem. So the seals can't enjoy, even the garter snakes, wow, crazy. And of course, my little favorite characters, right? So, had to be related to Squirt somehow. But yeah, the cheeky little guys. We sat among a raft of about 100 individuals. You may have heard that sometimes they'll hold on to each other with their paws. They'll form these big rafts and they just sit there and go in the waves. They have a little stone in their belly pouch where they'll use that to crack open their shellfish, which they love urchins. And again, like I said, those urchins are good that they're eating them. Anybody know how many hair follicles per square inch they have on their body? In 1 inch, 1 square inch. 1 million. So these guys don't have blubber, right? So you see where they're rotating in the water there and such? You have to take care of that fur. If they don't take care of that fur, they're not going to be a very healthy sea otter for long, because they don't have blubber to insulate them. That fur traps a layer of air in there because it's so dense, and that's what actually keeps them warm in that Pacific Ocean. So if you ever see a sea otter on land, it is a sick sea otter. It would not be a healthy sea otter. So river otters, of course, you'll see them. I had the most amazing experience just a week ago. I was by a creek, and all of a sudden I just hear all this rustling coming through the trees. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's coming at me, man? Holy smokes, I don't know. And it's just rustling. I'm like, okay. And I don't have any cameras. I'm just sitting there like this, just still, okay. Is a bear coming? Is a wolf coming? Anyway, 5 little otters through the creek. And every one of them would just come by at the spot where I could see them, and they'd just look at me and So, cheeky little guys, having an utterly outstanding day. Yeah. How many people here are having an utterly outstanding day? Yeah, I like it. Okay, good. Anyway, yeah, pretty cute. So, okay. Let's have our second draw. Okay. And I think, you know what, we're going to make this one a little bit different this time. I always do the $50 gift certificates. Does everybody like this image?
Yes.
Everybody?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Yes.
It's for a frame 5x7 of utterly outstanding day. Okay. There we go.
Matt, I'm trying.
Please say it's Jason. Please say it's Jason. It is Jen Giblin. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep.
Congratulations. Jen, you're going to have many utterly outstanding days.
Where did you capture that, Jason?
So that's right off Tofino.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're starting to come back in the Tofino area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll slowly move up to the northern areas. Like I know Port Hardy areas and such, they're seeing them a little bit now.
Yeah.
Literally 10 years ago, you'd see the odd one at Tofino when I visited, and now you're starting to see bigger rafts. So, have you seen them?
Yes, I lived in Soup for a bit, and off the end of Whiffin Spit, they'd often pop up,
Oh,
especially when the salmon run was on.
Oh, yeah.
They'd just be there floating around.
yeah. Ah, good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice to see them. How many people have seen sea otters? Cheeky guys, eh? Aren't they fun? Yeah, super fun. Yeah. Let's switch to Jasper. Yeah, let's. This is Sunrise for Your Spirit. Beautiful Spirit Island, and you'll see Spirit Island looks a little bit brown there, and that's because some of the pine beetle. And again, this is about connection and what we can kind of do to help Jasper. So, tough situation, sad situation. Anyone who lives in Canmore, Banff area knows that we are as well at risk of a similar situation. It's kind of beyond spiritual to think of some of that and what's going on and such. But it's all part of a changing climate, changing globe. So I had the good fortune this summer to spend a week with a family of bald eagles at Medicine Lake. Yeah, there's an amazing little spot there. You need you were talking about lenses, you need a super long lens, longer than I have even. But the odd time the eagles will perch near where you can view them from. And eagles are such a majestic bird, wingspan of 7 feet. They can pick up 5 to 7 pounds in weight, so about 50% of their body weight, they can pick it up and bring it back to the nest. And there was a nest site there where they had 2 little eaglets. So that nest would be about a ton in weight. And the way that ends up not being a nesting site is when that tree finally collapses. So they keep adding new nesting material to it year after year after year until it finally will collapse. I don't know if it got impacted by the fires. I haven't been back yet or not, but I'm not sure. Anyway, they would have been fledged. The eaglets would have been fledged by the time the fire came through, so they would have been okay. It's funny to sit there. You sit there the whole day and you wait for 3 events like that. They only feed them about 3 times a day. And it was amazing to have all the people come by because it's a spot that lots of people stop. And people from Los Angeles and people from the UK and people from all over the world, and just how these eagles and this eagle family kind of brought such happiness to people and connection. It was really, really quite beautiful. So. Eagles are one of the most resilient species. You may know back in the late 60s, 70s, they were almost extinct. There was only something like 400 breeding pairs in all of North America. And that was due to chemical use and the thinness of their eggshells. So they couldn't incubate their eggs without crushing them. And we now know that eagles are almost as common as seagulls when it comes to Alaska. You can see just so many of them, so just an incredible comeback. And that took some fortitude, and I really believe that Jasper will also have the fortitude to come back. So that's a new release as well. Amazing moment. Yeah. To encounter or bear pain or adversity with courage. So if you know anybody who needs fortitude, that's an image. I really look forward to unveiling this one because the fur, or the fur detail. Yeah, no, it's an animal, yeah. No, the feather detail is amazing, so just amazing. This adult was preening, and they have to take care of that outer coat, right? And so it was literally for 20 minutes just going through each individual feather and picking out the feathers that were no longer of health and tending to the feathers that needed to be tended to. So I'm just going to encourage everyone. I know you guys all come to Canmore, and I know you come visit the gallery and such, but maybe this year you want to take one trip to Jasper, and maybe you want to help out those small businesses if you're taking a trip. Just a thought, just a suggestion, okay? So they need us. All right, we'll go on to Don's Dominant Spray Lakes. For some of you, you may have collected this one as well. This was right up in the Spray Lakes on the way into Peter Lougheed there. Beautiful morning with a big bull moose. Those bull moose can be 1,500 pounds in weight. They're the most dangerous animal in North America. You may think it's grizzly bears. There's more moose attacks each year in North America than there are grizzly bear attacks. And I've been up 3 different trees over the years. I am not a cow moose. Anyway, this was a moosecane that happened for me.
Who's washing your car?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Quickly jumped over the passenger seat. It's a rental car, by the way. Got my camera lens out the side and such, and yeah, it was quite a little event.
Being attacked by moose right now as they're licking the vehicle. This is ridiculous. I'm thinking of this once.
I couldn't move. Literally, I was going down the Moline Lake Road, and it was a moosecane. There was about 10 moose in one spot. And you just have to stop, and all of a sudden this mother and its young came over and were licking the car because of the salt on the car, right? I'm like, I can't go anywhere. And then all of a sudden there's these other moose that are coming out, and you're like, I'm surrounded. Anyway, I was there about a week and just had some really crazy moments. Like, whoa, what was that?
Right in the middle of the road.
I had to find a big enough emoji for that one. Now, I want you to pay attention to those antlers up there, because that's going to come up in a conversation here in a bit. Okay. But yeah, I was catching the tail end of the rut season. So it was really fantastic. And when you're at the tail end of any of these rut seasons, whether it's elk, deer, moose, any of the ungulates, they can be one way one day, and the next day all of a sudden their testosterone levels are up again, and they've switched and they're aggressive again. This was a day when they were calm, right? Nothing was really going on. Here was a middle-sized bull and a young bull, and the little guy was saying, well, I think I could fight you. And the big guy was like, I don't think so, but I'm going to scratch this branch now and show you that I have pretty big antlers. So if you're ever out in the forest and you see those trees and they have been rubbed on, that's an ungulate that's marking its territory. So it's called a rub on a tree. And it basically is there's a couple different things that happen there. First off, the animal can figure out how big their antlers are, because they're not going to go look in a mirror. So they can rub and they can go, oh, I'm about this big, and I'm about that big on that side. They also have a little gland in the inside of their eye that releases a little secretion during the rut season. And if you ever look at ungulates during the rut season, their eyes are almost bulging out, and that's because that gland is really flowing. And they'll rub their eye into some of those branches to leave their scent behind as well. So that's the way they mark their territory. Now, ones that are more evenly matched will have a little bit more of a confrontation.
Do they ever hook horns at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how common it is in bull moose, but in white-tailed deer and mule deer, you can get animals that will lock their horns and unfortunately never unlock and succumb to it. So these fights can be quite dangerous, yeah. So anyway, at one point, I had a beautiful moment where the two biggest majestic boys had a face-off. Now, which one got the girl? The guy on the left or the guy on the right? Do you guys remember?
The last thing.
No, it was the guy on the right.
Yeah.
This never got aggressive, because what happens with some of these larger males, by the time they're getting to the end of the rut season, they know who is the dominant one. So the fellow on the left goes, oh yeah, I remember you, you're Joe. And the last time I had an interaction with you, Joe, you kicked my butt. So I'm not gonna have a fight. And the guy on the left just walked away. So anyway, beautiful piece, beautiful moment with some bull moose in Jasper. Okay. Now, that is the end of my presentation. We didn't go 45 minutes. Yeah. Let's do our final draw. Okay. So final draw for $50 gift certificate. And then I'll answer any questions you might have. Will you help us out?
Yes. Oops. I think it's more than one.
Oh, you okay? Oh, it is more than one. Well, I guess we're doing two. Okay. So, Catherine. It's you, right? Yeah, perfect. Okay. Catherine, congratulations. Sorry, couldn't pronounce the last name. Oh, and this will be tough too. Candace, right? As well. Do I have to pronounce the last name, Candace? Is Candace here? No Candace? Daniuk? Did I get that right? No Candace? I guess we just have one winner, Catherine. Okay, congrats. Congrats. Awesome. Okay. Does anybody have any final questions before I do the unveiling now? Okay, I'm going to unveil the new additions, all right, and then give us a few minutes to kind of get the chairs organized and such. If there's anything that you have questions about, my team is here to help you with that. And Christmas is on the way, so if you want to share some of my art, that's a great idea. Hint, hint. Anyway, and thank you for being an awesome group of people, and congrats again for being part of All in the Wild in this community. Okay, Wild Ones. Awesome.